Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marianne Monteleone, Director of Education for LIBOR. This month is National Realtor Safety Month because protecting yourself on the job is not just important, it's essential. We have a very special presenter with us today. He's a close friend to LIBOR and his fellow realtors, but let me formally introduce you to David Lagaz. David leverages 2 decades of law enforcement experience, more than 25 years of real estate practice to educate realtors internationally how to reduce their risk of being targeted by a predator. He also co-authored the agent safety book, Safe Selling, a practical guide for preventing crime without sacrificing the sale. Since 2013, Dave has served as an NAR director. In 2019, as a graduate of the NAR Leadership Academy, he advocated for the creation of Realtor Safety Advisory Committee, becoming the first chairperson in 2020. Dave also holds the roles of education chairperson and a board member of the Beverly Carter Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to improving agent safety. Dave also served the 2021 and 22 National Fundraising Co-Chair for the Realtors Relief Foundation and currently sits as one of the board of directors. Dave, the National Association of Realtors 2024 Broker Relations Liaison, held leadership roles at both the state and national levels, serving as the president of the New York State Association of Realtors, NYSAR, the Long Island Board of Realtors, LIBOR, and the Asian Real Estate Association of America, ARIA, New York East chapter. In recognition of his outstanding contributions, he was named the LIBOR's Realtor of the Year in 2014 and has been actively involved as a NYSAR director since 2012. Dave retired as a New York State Police Detective Sergeant in 2002 after serving as a first responder of the World Trade Center on 9/11, where he tragically lost his partner. His unwavering commitment to saving lives, rooted in his service as a member of New York's finest, continues to shape his work today. We're proud and happy to have him with us, so please welcome Dave Lagaz.
Thank you, Marianne, and I apologize for everybody for that long intro. I didn't know what to write, so I asked my mother to help me. And the funny thing is, I'm not even my mom's favorite, so I can imagine what my brother's bios would look like. So today we're going to talk about realtor safety, but more in the goal of learning what a predator will do if they have an opportunity to come and attack us. So years ago, the real estate industry made a false assumption that crimes against agents were random, opportunistic street crimes. And in fact, we know that from police reports, it's more about their predatory behavior and how they hunt us and very classic predatory behavior patterns. We'll learn today that the goal of a predator is power and control, and they're attracted to agents who show signs of weakness, subservience, and vulnerability. So I'm going to be showing some videos here today. It's a very video-rich content. These are going to be actual stories from newscasters reporting on agent victim crimes, and in some cases, the agent is there telling their story. But before we begin, I do want to thank and honor those essential workers, those active and retired and reservists, military and first responders who keep us safe at home and abroad. If you're one of them or your family serves, thank them for their service and keeping us safe. So the first video is a video I helped NAR create where we interviewed two realtor victims, and here's their story.
Member safety is a matter of your life or your death.
I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be in a situation to where I would have a 9mm held to my head.
It was a day like any other when James Olson, an agent with more than 35 years experience, set out to meet a blind lead at a vacant property, something he had done countless times before.
I was actually with my wife on the way to an appointment. I had never met this person, and she was sitting on the front porch waiting for me, and I just told my wife to wait in the car. We walked through the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen. Now, I've been in this property a number of times, and it just seemed odd to me that all the doors were closed. So I went to grab the bedroom door, and out came a masked gunman holding a 9mm to my head. He was all dressed in black like a ninja. He had a hoodie on, sunglasses, face mask, black gloves, black everything. Within a couple seconds, another guy dressed the same held a 9mm up against the side of my head. I had my hands up in the air, and he said, "Get down to the floor." So I took his gun, and he hit me in the back of the head. I went falling to my knees. Blood was flowing in my eyes. They're asking me where the money is, and I told them I didn't have any, so they rifled my pockets and pulled my pants down and socks and shoes off, and they wound up making away with my wedding ring, my wallet, and my iPhone. And he came back to me and said, "Give us 10 minutes or we're coming back here and killing you." These guys are out there, and if they attack me, more than likely they're going to be going after somebody else. This was a predatory assault. They didn't just randomly pick me, they stalked me.
Jim Olson was surveilled and targeted based on his job as collecting rents as a property manager. They knew what day to lure him into the property that was vacant so he could be robbed at gunpoint. Studies have shown that agent male victims were attacked 30% of the time. And we know with Jim Olson, and he's a big burly man, infantry soldier, never was in fear that something could happen, and he was a victim of a violent robbery. And now, listen to his story, he changes the way he does business. He arrives at a home much earlier than the appointment time and does a circumference of the house to see if there's anything out of place or if there's any broken windows or forced entry.
Kitty Wallace, a managing broker with almost 20 years experience, has faced off with numerous predators.
One of my most recent experiences was from a gentleman who wanted to see a home. I have a practice that I have them meet me at the office for the first time. This particular gentleman didn't want to meet me at the office, so that did put a red flag up for me.
Working in a rural area with limited cell phone reception, Kitty remained steadfast in her safety protocols, but the caller had a plan of his own.
He was very insistent, and it was, "Can you meet me there in an hour?" And I said, "No, unfortunately, I can schedule an appointment with you. We can sit down and see what your needs are." "No, I want to see this house." And he said, "Okay, then meet me in 2 hours." He just kind of kept moving the time frame for me. And when that escalated and he wouldn't meet me, he ended up calling my office. He was swearing at me, saying that, "That's my job. I need to meet him here. What is my seller going to do when he finds out I won't show him this property," etc. And I just didn't let myself get bullied. I really stood my ground and didn't meet with him at all. I've always kind of just accepted it's part of the job, and that's really not okay. So I reported it to my local association, and they sent an email blast to all the agents. 2 other agents reached out to me, and they had also been approached by this gentleman. Maybe I prevented something bad happening not only to myself, but maybe somebody else as well. I do believe that the intent of some clients is not to buy a house. The intent is to see what they could do if they got me a loan.
Jim and Kitty's harrowing stories display the 2 types of predatory motives: profit and power and control.
There is a misconception that crimes against agents are random opportunistic street crime, and in fact, they're of predatory nature. And by understanding predatory behavior and learning that you can remove weakness, subservience, and vulnerability out of your daily practice, you'll be able to keep yourself safe.
I think realtor safety is one of the most important things that any realtor can learn about.
The goal of the Realtor Safety Program is to reduce the number of incidents in our industry so this way you can come home to your family every night You deserve it, and they deserve it.
I think having these protocols in place is definitely the key to saving my life. 99.9% of the time, our job is amazing. It's that 0.01% that's not worth my life.
So according to U.S. Department of Labor, we have a high-risk occupation. In fact, in some states, when you apply for life insurance, your premium may be higher because you're a licensed agent. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there's been an average of 20 homicides per year of real estate professionals since 2011. And to bring the stats really home closer to us, there are more real estate professionals killed nationwide each year than NYPD officers. More real estate professionals are killed nationwide each year than NYPD officers, and that's an astounding statistic. And as an NYPD sergeant, I was prepared for an emergency. I had a utility belt that had a firearm, a nightstick, mace, handcuffs, a radio call for help. And as realtors, we really don't have those tools, but today I'm going to give you some things you could do to keep yourself safe. Since the kidnapping and murder of Beverly Carter in 2014, in fact, September 30th, in a couple days, is when her body was found. But she was an agent from Little Rock, Arkansas, who was kidnapped, held for ransom, and ultimately murdered. NAR decided to take a look on what we're doing and how we keep ourselves safe and what dangers we face every day. So allow me to go over some of the statistics. It showed that 22% of the agents work in fear last year. And according to our NAR population of about 1.5 million agents, that's about 330 agents nationwide was on a job that made them in fear for their life. And if we break down that statistic to about a 30,000 member association here on Long Island, that's 6,600 realtors last year that was on the job and felt unsafe. Situations that made them feel unsafe, according to the survey, was after receiving a threatening or inappropriate email, text message, phone call, or voicemail. And not too far behind was during a showing or during an open house. But let's talk a little about that inappropriate email, text message, voicemail, phone call. A lot of times a predator is going to send you a text and say, after the showing, can we go for a cocktail? Can we go to the movies? I want to take care of you. I've had agents on my team, female agents, that receive flowers from strangers who turned out to most likely be a predator prior to the appointment. So if you do receive any of these inappropriate messages, you got to make sure that you're not expressing signs of weakness, subservience, or vulnerability. And it's best for you to bark back at them and say something like, what you're doing is inappropriate. I'm going to call 911 if this continues. So this way you don't show that you're weak, vulnerable, or subservient, because those are the attractors that attract a predator. Areas that made him feel unsafe, majority was in the suburban area. And then when they asked how many people were victims of a violent crime, 5% of the realtors were victims, which is about 75,000 NAR realtors or about 1,500 local LIBOR realtors who are either victims of assault, robbery, sexual abuse, rape, or murder. And then they asked, well, when or where did the crime occur? And the majority of the time came after receiving that threatening or inappropriate email, text message, voicemail, or phone call. Again, it's that predator testing to see if you are weak, vulnerable, or subservient. The survey asks, well, how many people show properties alone? And 85% of residential realtors said they shown a property alone, which increased tremendously from last year when it was reported to be much less. How many people met a new client alone at a secluded location? And it's been averaging about 30, 34, 35%. And the reason why we ask this question is because a predator is going to lure you to a secluded location that's vacant where you cannot be seen or heard. So here are some newscasts of actual of actual times where agents in a different part of their job, whether it's a showing, open house, or a listing appointment, you can look on the top of each slide and it'll show you at what stage of the business these crimes occurred at.
Police say he attacked a pregnant real estate agent October 8th as she was showing a house near Glennon Mountain.
Don't know what his motive was, but we do know he attempted to contact other female real estate agents in the area and get them to show him homes that were up for sale also.
The victim later miscarried. Davansaya has a record stretching back to 1999.
So here is a predator posed as a prospective prospect who had a rap sheet. There are several apps out there that you can check to see if there's anything that comes up prior to the appointment.
According to detectives, Lewis was caught on surveillance video kidnapping 37-year-old Stefano Barbosa at gunpoint outside a Fort Lauderdale home. Lewis then allegedly forced the victim to make two $500 withdrawals before shooting him.
So our statistics show that 30% were of the agent victims were men. And here, this is a classic kidnapping. And we know from kidnapping, we don't want to get into that car to be taken to a secondary location, because when you get to that secondary location, the outcome is never good. So if you are abducted on the street, try to create a commotion where someone could possibly come in and intervene. And if you're forced to get in the car, try to create an accident, because the injuries received in the accident were probably less than what you would receive if you were taken to that secondary location.
Douglas County Sheriff's deputies found Sodoro lifeless Tuesday morning. An autopsy determined he was shot to death. We're told he was showing Lorello the property. Though the suspect has no criminal history, he's known in the world of realty for the wrong reasons. Jason Burnstill, a real estate agent, told 6 News Lorello has, quote, a long history of questionable interactions with other agents and describes him as creepy.
So this predator was known to the real estate community for over 10 years as one of the people that come to these open houses that make you feel uncomfortable. And we all have them in our marketplace. But if the MLS or the association had a safety alert system in place, the agent may have decided not to go on the appointment or to take a buddy. Luckily here in LIBOR, we created that system several years ago, and it's been activated several times, where you'll get the scenario of what the predator is using to lure agents into vacant properties. So if you do have an incident that you feel suspicious about, give LIBOR a call. They'll vet out the situation and determine whether it warrants to notify the agents in the area.
Both charged with felony abduction and misdemeanor assault after allegedly attempting to abduct a 54-year-old realtor as she waited to show a home in North Ridgeville. The woman was scheduled to show a home on Homecrest Drive when Helton and Evans allegedly asked her for a business card and then grabbed her and attempted to pull her into an SUV.
So we teach our kids not to approach strange vehicles or strange people. And as realtors, we're very friendly by nature, and we're always looking for that next lead. So when she was summoned to the van to give a business card, she didn't know that she'd be victimized and attempted to be abducted. But ask yourself, if she was with a buddy, whether a licensed person or a friend or a relative, most likely she wouldn't have been targeted.
She was showing this home to a potential client when he told her there was a leak in the bathroom. As she walked in, he came in behind her, slammed the door shut, and shoved her against the wall, yelling sexually explicit profanities. The victim says she remained calm, fought back, and made up a story her attacker fell for.
So the predator used the most common way to set the stage to attack, and usually it's there's a leak in the bathroom or a leak in the basement. And shortly I'll show you some other ways they set the stage to attack. But by fighting back, she was able to escape. And research shows that women who physically resisted and defended themselves reduced the odds of a completed rape and physical injury. By pleading with a sexual predator, you're only feeding into the perception that you're weak and vulnerable. So it's always best to fight back. And even if you're not trained, a simple punch to the nose, a kick to the groin could take down any person. And the story the agent told the predator was that the homeowners were due to come back in the next couple minutes. So that, along with fighting back, did stop the attack.
Some troubling behavior in Hillsborough County. Deputies tell us a man is going around looking for female real estate agents who are alone and then inappropriately touching them.
And unfortunately, this happens more frequently than we realized. And here's a very disturbing fact nationwide, even outside of our industry. And it shows that 1 in 3 women will be attacked with the intent of sexual assault, and 1 out of every 6 women have been victims of an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. And many females don't report these sexual abuse attacks because of victim shaming. So when we host an open house and we're by ourselves and we look at these statistics about women being victimized, we're just making it easier for a predator to come and find us.
A local real estate agent was attacked after showing a model home. A real estate agent noticed Cervantes was acting suspicious. He unlocked several windows and eventually left. The agent called 911 to report his suspicious behavior. She then locked the front door and windows and called a coworker. While she was on the phone with her coworker, Cervantes returned. He broke a window. The real estate agent hid in a closet. The police report says Cervantes dragged her out of the closet and she fought to try and free herself. He made threatening comments before performing a lewd act.
Again, when you're hosting or showing by yourself, you leave yourself open for an opportunity of an attack. She did everything right. She locked the door, locked the windows, called 911. She was on the phone with a buddy, but the predator still broke through and attacked her. But we do have to be careful and watch the people when they come in through the houses to make sure they're not taking that key that may be in that double locked door by the kitchen, or open up a window for a surprise attack later on. Now, this attack is happened at a commercial showing.
Bulletin putting female realtors on edge. It warns of a man who's lured at least 14 women to the same downtown Detroit commercial property under the guise of listing it. Then he makes unwanted advances. We do know he is a registered sex offender, making the situation even more concerning. He requests the women meet him alone and gets upset if they bring a male colleague. The women reported the professional interaction takes a turn to comments on the agent's looks or clothing. In one of the cases, he brought the agent flowers and wanted to, quote, take care of her.
A lot of the commercial agents are not concerned about the safety. They just don't think about it. But if you actually conceptualize what's happening, you're most likely showing a warehouse that may be vacant or an office building after hours where you are alone in a property with the stranger. Now, this happened at a listing appointment.
Court documents say Jason Haddad was inside his house alone with the victim. Police say as the two were going room to room, Haddad asked her, quote, what her fetishes were. The victim was, quote, caught off guard and did not respond because she wanted to remain professional. The two continued throughout the home, and according to police, the victim found numerous sex toys, a rope, and handcuffs in one of the rooms. Police say after that discovery is when Haddad sexually assaulted the victim.
And this was a listing appointment. We always think about stranger danger with buyers. We do our research. We see who the homeowner is. We believe we're talking to the homeowner when they make their inquiry. But do we ever check ID when we're there? Do we bring a buddy with us? Again, you're showing that you're weak, subservient, and vulnerable is when you're by yourself and don't have anyone there to help prevent an attack.
He walked inside before the open house started, right behind her.
He came in and he told me, am I dangerous to be setting up alone? Am I alone? He kept asking if I'm alone, and I'm alone.
He started asking questions about the home.
He was getting ready to leave, and he gave me a handshake, and then he grabbed my arm, my hand, and he pulled me in.
Then things started to escalate.
He kept trying to kiss me, and he said, please, just one kiss, and he kept, kissing my neck.
She says eventually
he let me go, said more weird stuff, and then he left.
She was able to get a picture of De Silva's vehicle when he took off.
That was very good. By taking the picture of the vehicle, help them find the attacker. But on the onset of an open house, it's very crucial to be vigilant as there's a risk of potential predators may be lurking nearby or in the home. And in this instance, the agent successfully thwarted an attack by using physical force again and broke free from their grip.
Says the attack was completely unexpected. She says 34-year-old Holdren showed up like any regular customer Saturday and even took a complete tour of the home.
It makes absolutely no sense, but he came in and he signed in. He gave his name, he told her where he worked, and he told her about his children.
Grant says Holdren left when another client arrived, but he returned later, telling Farrington he had left his phone in the basement.
What changed from the minute he left until he came back, no one will ever know.
That's when Farrington says he attacked her with a crescent wrench, saying he hit her over the head with that wrench up to 12 times.
So what you're going to learn is that predators often give their real name and contact information. I spoke to the detective investigating this incident, and everything he gave was factual. His name, where the kids went to school, where his work was. And he initially left the open house because other buyers arrived behind him, and he wasn't going to be able to have her alone. So what he did was he came back with the guys that he left his phone in the basement to try to lure her down there. And in fact, he did. And he didn't come there with a weapon, but he knew there would be weapons in the property. As he admitted to the police, he knew there'd be a wrench or a hammer to use, and he did use a wrench. The agent Lenore was a black belt in karate, and she was able to kind of shield herself from some of the blows, but she was wounded pretty bad. But again, ask yourself, would the attack happen if Lenore wasn't alone? Now this one is rather graphic, and you'll see that the agent escaped to the stoop, and we'll go over it in a minute.
Remember you said...
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, another realtor says she also had an encounter with this same man in February, also at an open house, also in Encino.
So this is an example of victim shopping. And again, a predator's not afraid to get caught. He's looking up at the security camera, the video camera there on the door. But you notice he's holding a bottle of water. And the agent felt uncomfortable, so she went outside to the stoop, hoping that if she was outside in public, an attack wouldn't happen. But he tried to lure her back in by saying, hey, go inside and get me a bottle of water from the refrigerator. And she says, go get it yourself. She went outside, and then the attack happened. And in speaking to the agent, she said that he displayed signs of increased adrenaline as the appointment went on. So that's why she escaped to the front stoop. We were going to interview her for the NAR video that we showed in the beginning of this class, but she was too afraid to fly. And I was going to fly out to California to bring it to the Chicago NAR studios for the video, but she was just too afraid to fly. Her business is totally changed. She only works by referral. Her broker goes with her on every appointment. She's in therapy, and she's on some medication for the anxiety from this attack. This predator was seen at other open houses leading up to this. And again, he waited to find someone who displayed signs of weakness, subservience, or vulnerability. And this agent was vulnerable because she was by herself hosting this open house.
Near this model home in Hanover, Maryland. Sales representative Stephen Wilson was shot to death Wednesday evening at about 5 p.m. His cell phone and laptop were stolen.
Again, another agent male victim and another deadly outcome. The next is going to be a video of the predator approaching the house with a shotgun. And remember, there's two types of predators, one who goes for power and control and one who goes for profit. And this was one of those cases, but this predator had no idea and any knowledge of who that person who Steve Wilson was. They had no prior relationship. and he was robbed and shot and killed at the model home in Maryland.
We got into the master bedroom and he pulled a knife out. And I could not believe it was happening.
He showed the knife and a can of bear spray.
He asked me to take off my ring and to get in the closet.
Donna says she felt her life was in danger.
I have a license to conceal carry and I had a firearm, and I drew my weapon. As I drew my firearm and he saw that I had that, he doused me with bear spray. So at that point I could not see, barely see, and my skin was burning, my eyes were on fire. And so I fired.
So we know in New York, especially in New York City, it's difficult to obtain a concealed carry permit. But by her having that firearm, it did save her life. She was proficient in its use and its safety, and she was able to stop the attack. So NAR surveyed realtors and to see what self-defense weapons do we carry. And 50% of the agents surveyed carried some sort of self-defense weapon, whether it was pepper spray, firearm, a pocket knife. And 24% of the females carried pepper spray and 22% of the males carried firearms. So what is NAR's policy on self-defense weapons? They really don't have a position other than know what your state laws are, know that weapons can be prevented from entering into brokerages, building owners or sellers could prevent you from entering with the weapon. And speaking as an NYPD sergeant, if you're licensed to conceal carry, regularly practice at the range. As an NYPD officer, we're required to qualify twice a year, and we're also trained in gun retention and gun safety. But this scenario about our safety is not new. Back in 1967, there was an episode from Dragnet called The Missing Realtor. And for those who don't know, the millennials in the audience, Dragnet was a crime show that was aired weekly. And they showcased crimes that were true and changed the names to protect the innocent. But even in 1967, there was attacks upon realtors.
It was warm in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of homicide. The boss is Captain Brown. My partner's Bill Gannon. My name's Friday. Mrs. Lily Burnham, a real estate broker, had been reported missing. The preliminary investigation indicated a strong possibility of foul play.
So Mrs. Lily Burnham was found murdered in a home she had shown, and Officer Gannon and Sergeant Friday found her day planner in the car and later apprehended the predator. And he was later convicted of first-degree murder in California. But this was a true case, and even in 1967, there was a fear for our safety. So I spoke briefly a little about Beverly Carter, and September 30th was the day that they actually found Beverly murdered in a shallow grave. So if you're on social media, reach out to Carl Carter Jr., her son. He created this little video telling a story about his precious mom and what happened to her that day. Carl is a crusader for realtor safety. And when he started the Beverly Carter Foundation, I was asked to join with him to help him. Here's his story.
Beverly Carter was my sweet mom. She was an executive broker and a top producing real estate professional from the North Little Rock, Arkansas area. While doing the work that my mom loved so much, she was kidnapped and murdered in the fall of 2014. A couple of weeks before that showing that took my mom from me, my mom began hearing from a couple. Their story was that they were out-of-state buyers. They were relocating due to work, cash buyers, and my mom was hearing from them from phone calls, text, and emails. Their phone number matched that of an out-of-state buyer. Their email address matched the fictitious names that they had given her. But my mom had no idea that these people were not who they said they were. She had no idea of their intentions to kidnap her, to hold her for ransom, and to take her perceived wealth. The husband of this couple that took my mom said when he was questioned why Beverly He said because she was a rich broker that worked alone. Just being in the profession, marketing herself as the professional that she was, made her a target. As my mom worked with this couple and learned more about how she could best serve them, she reached out to other agents within her agency to get them to be on the lookout for properties that might be of interest to this couple. My mom talked about this couple and their needs to my dad. And so many people were aware that Mom was working with these clients. However, something happened when the couple reached out and they requested to see a specific property. A property that my mom knew was vacant and was in a bit of disarray. A property that my mom knew probably wouldn't be what they were looking for. We know that it raised a red flag with my mom because my mom did a great thing. And that's that she made up a company policy in the moment, and she said to them, "I'm so sorry, but company policy prohibits me from working alone in a rural area." What my mom didn't anticipate was that the husband handed the phone to his wife, and the wife said, "Hey girl, I'm going to be joining the two of you at this property. Will your company be okay for the three of us to be there during this showing?" My mom, being so sweet and so professional, did as many of us would. She agreed to show them this property. A property that I'll add was known to be in a safe area. This was a common place for my mom. It's a lakefront property. Just a few doors down from this home is where the pastor of my mother's church lived. A community known for its safe community feel, where people are known to not even lock their doors. So my mom agreed to meet this couple and show them this property. It's 6 p.m. Keep in mind, my mom had never met them in a public place prior to this. My mom had no idea that on the other end of this transaction, the husband was a 7-time felon. And so my mom got to that property early that day after calling my dad and saying that she was going to show that specific property, and Dad knew exactly where she'd be. 6 p.m. came, and a black car pulls up in the driveway, and it's the husband. And the husband starts in with all these excuses about how he's sorry that the wife will not be able to join them, that she got caught up at work. And sure enough, just kind of in tandem with those excuses, my mom's phone starts receiving text messages from the wife with the apologies. They asked my mom to proceed with showing the property that day, and asked my mom that while she toured the home with the husband, if she would just use her cell phone to take property photos to send to the wife. So it could be as though she was on the showing, at least digitally. And so my mom agreed to show the property. And really one of the toughest things I've ever seen is at the conclusion of the trial, we received my mother's cell phone back, and the last 10 photos on the camera roll were of the interior of this home. And my mom was showing property that day as she was texting them to the wife and answering questions about the property. But my mom had no idea that on the second floor, one of the bedrooms, as she turned from taking a photograph, that she would be met with a roll of tape just like this one and a taser in her side. The bad guy has been very proud to admit that the last words that my mother heard in her safety were, "You're about to have a very bad day." That bad guy tased my mom. He taped her hands behind her back. He taped her ankles together. He ran this tape entirely around her head over her eyes and entirely around her head over her mouth. He went outside and got in his car and backed his car up to the house and opened the trunk and placed my mom in the trunk of that car. He took my mom to a remote area and made her do the first of what would be a series of ransom recordings. These were intended to get my dad to pay a hefty ransom so that these bad guys would never have to work again. After having my mom record that ransom recording, he took my mom to their home, to the bad guy's home, and locked her in their master bathroom. It was at that point that this bad guy thought about this ransom plan and how they would get these funds from my father. And their original plan was that they would use this rich broker's purse and have this husband push all of this money to the cards within the purse. But in that moment, they found a major flaw in their plan. As a safety precaution, my mom never showed property with her purse on her shoulder. She had left it locked in her car. So in his haste to kidnap my sweet mom and to put her in the trunk of his car, he forgot the purse. That night, he left my mom at his home being guarded by the wife of this couple. And he came back to get the purse, and he found that my entire family was there. Law enforcement was there. And as with so many criminals, they think that they have the best and the brightest plan and they won't get caught. And then they see blue lights and they make crazy decisions. And in the case of my sweet mom, they decided to end my mother's life when they realized that their plan wouldn't work. I carry with me my mother's name badge. This is the badge that she was wearing that day whenever she was showing property. It's a really harsh reality and reminder that these people perceived her not as the precious person that she was, but as a vehicle for money. And whenever they couldn't get what they wanted, they took this precious person, they broke it, and they discarded it. My mother's body was found buried in a shallow grave after days and days of searching. We're fortunate that in my mother's case, there was at least some justice, and that the people that took her are in prison now. But our family has obviously a huge hole that can't be filled from my precious mom. And so in the aftermath of losing her, we've recognized what can happen within this industry and the things that we need to do to keep a similar tragedy from ever happening again. And so in response to losing my precious mom, we founded a nonprofit in her name. It's called the Beverly Carter Foundation. And it exists solely for safety awareness, training, victim advocacy, all for this industry. The industry that my mom loved so much, that she gave so much to, but also now an industry that can learn from my sweet mom and keep this from happening to other people. We welcome you to come to our website, check out our resources, rally with us to help keep others safe. Our web address is beverlycarterfoundation.org.
After losing his mom, he decided to become a licensed agent to see and feel what mom felt every day. And now he's a huge evangelist for our safety in the community.
When asked why he chose to rob and murder real estate agent Beverly Carter, her killer answered, because she was a rich broker working alone. If you were to walk through a local mall and ask 100 women if they would meet a strange man at an empty property, most would say no. For a real estate agent, that's part of the job description.
That's what we do every day. You wouldn't tell your son or daughter to meet a stranger in a vacant home for a job interview, and we do that. So talking about shown vacant homes, the survey asks, well, how many agents shown vacant homes that had poor or no cell phone coverage? And 48% had shown them alone. But 34% felt unsafe for the obvious reasons. With poor cell phone coverage or no cell phone coverage, you can't call for help or activate any of your safety apps. In preparing to write the book on predatory behavior, the Safe Selling book, and it's a free ebook. We're going to give it to you at the end of this class, where you could download it from Dropbox. We hired the University of Texas at Austin to look at the behavioral differences between a predator and a thief. And a predator's motive is power and control, where the thief's motive is purely profit. The crimes a predator is going to commit is assault, rape, and murder. And a thief is going to either burglarize from the home or steal from you. To a predator, there's a huge emotional component involved in the planning and staging and the attack in itself. To a thief, there's no emotional component. Again, what attacks a predator is when you show signs of weakness, subservience, and vulnerability. What attracts a thief is the valuables that may be in the home or the ease of stealing those valuables. The goal of a predator is to isolate you so you cannot be seen or heard during the attack. The goal of a thief is to be isolated so you cannot see them steal from the home. To the predator, they're filling an emotional need. Something's lacking within them. And to a thief, it's basically potential gain versus potential risk. So here's a timeline of a predator. First, they're going to initially focus on your photography, the photos that you take, your headshots. And I'll go over some ways to take a proper headshot. Then they're going to focus their behavior. And part of their research stage is they're going to look at your marketing message on your website and your social media. And I'm going to give you some examples of an authoritative way to say it and a subservient way to put your message out there in your marketing. Then there's a big fantasy part of this where they're going to insert elements of the agent's life into their life of the predator. And they're stalking you while they do this without you even know they're there. But if a predator was stalking me remotely, they'd go on my social media. They would see that I'm an avid fisherman. I love to cook what I catch from the sea. I make great meals and I serve it with some good wine. To a predator, he's on my boat and I'm helping him bait his hook. He's in my kitchen chopping some vegetables and he's at my dining room table and I'm pouring him a glass of wine as we break bread. And the predator is going to do this and focus on several agents simultaneously without us even being aware. In fact, here's an example of some predatory behavior. There was a property for sale in Texas a couple of years ago, and the property next to it, the agent looked in the yard and noticed there was female realtors from her community on the shed and on the fence. And we know when we watch these crime dramas, generally a predator is creating a shrine to the people they're going to attack and a shrine to the people they did attack. Luckily, this agent called 911. Police came. The person in the home was mentally disturbed, and he was able to get help from his family before he was able to attack any of the female realtors in the community. But this just shows you how weird and creepy and fantasizing these predators do without us realizing. Then they're going to plan the meeting. When the fantasy and stalking no longer create that high, they're going to create an inquiry for you to show them a vacant home. They may say that they're from out of town. They're all cash buyers. They're only here for a couple days, so you can get there an immediate appointment. And they're going to ask to see a property that may be on the higher end of your normal median sales, maybe something in a high income or a luxury home. So this way you would jump at that appointment. Then you have an opportunity to show your strength when they execute their plan. And I'm going to give you some ways on how to greet them and how to make the calls back to their inquiry to show strength. And then they may meet you or they may not meet you, depending on their state of mind and their urges that day. As a matter of fact, I'm sure we all have had these no-show appointments where we get an inquiry, we tell them, meet us at the property. We haven't met them before, and now they don't show up at the property, and then they ghost us afterwards. Most of those no-shows were probably predators who didn't have the urge or the state of mind to commit that attack that day. And that's called victim shopping, and we saw that in several of the newscasts. Then they're going to set the stage to attack you, and there's 3 common ways I'll explain how they're going to isolate you to attack. And then just prior to the attack, they're going to show signs of increased adrenaline. Your basic signs of clenched fist, bulging neck veins, profuse sweating. They may be in your space, making you feel a little uncomfortable. So let me explain to you the definition of a crime. And if you're able to remove one of these elements, the crime won't occur. So that's why I put it on a 3-legged stool. The first is the motive or the reason. The second is the means and the ability. And the third is the opportunity or chance to commit the crime. Obviously, we have no control of the motive or the reason why a predator does this. But if we remove the means or the opportunity, the crime won't occur and the chair won't stand. So the first thing to talk about removing means is something I call smart marketing. And do not share personal information about yourself. And I used to always do this, especially when I showed in the towns where I lived. I would say, this is a great area. I live in that brick house on that corner. Our kids go to this school. We go to this after school program. They play soccer on this field on Sundays. And this is the church we go to. Now you just told the predator all the different ways and where he could attack you and your family. And we included this in the book because in interviewing realtor victims, there were many a times that after a showing, they were stalked at their son's soccer field or at the son's track meet or at their Little League game because the realtor shared too much personal information of themselves. And then try not to use alluring or provocative photography. Beverly Carter's a beautiful woman there. And we know years ago in the 90s, women used to get their hair did, nails done, put on the good jewelry, and then take those photos to make them look successful. But you'll see in Beverly's photo there, she's presenting a slight head tilt. She has a smile that's kind of slanted. And here's the way to take a picture and the way not to take a picture. The way not to take a picture is the one on the right in the red box. You'll notice a slight head tilt. You'll notice an exaggerated smile and a wide open eyes. And it's a smile as if someone just told them that they love her. To a predator, that's very subservient. That's very suggestive. And it may show some signs of vulnerability, and you may get attacked because of the position of your head and your smile. The picture on the left in the green box is the head of a professional smile. It's straight. It'll make the agent look less attractive to the predator because it projects power, confidence, authority, and it creates boundaries. But due to the predator's predictive behavior, it's best to follow these guidelines when taking a picture. Avoid full body photos whenever possible. Use photos that are just right or at the shoulders. When using pictures that do include the upper body, be professional. Wear a shirt that goes no lower than the top of the breastbone. Avoid wearing form-fitting clothes. Wear professional colors and a jacket if possible. Your makeup should be natural and understated. And your jewelry should be minimal and maybe wedding bands instead of wedding rings. Here's what not to do. I found these 2 on social media. The one on the left is an agent in Manhattan who was celebrating her sale in the condo's hot tub. Definitely not the right thing to do. It definitely attract a predator. I did reach out to her and tell her what she was doing was wrong. She blocked me on Instagram. I did reach out to a broker, and our broker did have her take it down. And then the one on the left was also sent to me, and shocking how that photo is supposed to sell property or your services. But it does leave you vulnerable to a predatory attack with these type of presentations. So here's a way to have a smart marketing message. Know that the words you use in your marketing messages have connotations, and they have an emotional value above and over and above the literal meaning. And we know that predators are attracted to weakness, subservience, and vulnerability, so it's essential to select words that convey power, control, knowledge, and authority to reduce the attraction of a predator. So an authoritative message is, I have the experience to handle the entire real estate process. A subservient message may read, here, I'm here to serve all your real estate needs. And again, to a predator, you're making a very suggestive statement there to them. Then on the initial inquiry, when you return their call, you're going to use neighborhood information and property information. You're going to establish power and control, and you're going to set expectations. So when an inquiry comes in, you're going to respond to the prospect by saying, thank you for inquiring about 123 Main Street. It's one of our most popular listings. This home accents plenty of natural sunlight with plenty of windows. And what you just did was you told the predator that people could see in from the outside because there's plenty of windows, and that it's a popular listing, that there may be other people there. Just by using that statement alone may deter a predator from selecting you and a property to be attacked. Then you're going to try to reestablish power control, and you're going to say, instead of meeting at 5 o'clock, let's meet at 5:30. Even though you know you're available at 5, the property's available, there's a lockbox, or you have access to it, just by changing that time, you're reestablishing power control and taking it away from a predator. And then you're going to set expectations. You're going to say, we will be spending no more than 15 minutes at the showing, as the sellers are due to return at 5:45. And we know from the newscasts, just by stating that statement and fighting back, the attack stopped. To a prospect, this is a common conversation that's not going to raise any red flags. Though to a predator, you're removing any signs of weakness with this conversation. And then we need to be an active listener. And years ago, NAR said, bring the prospect into the office, introduce them to other people around, because if people see who they are, they may not attack you. We know that's not true, because there's incidences where even after meeting a prospect at a office, the next day they were still attacked, even after giving their ID and their license plate number and their registration to the vehicle. Again, a predator doesn't care that you know who they are. So this is why I believe that getting a copy of the driver's license or having a buyer sign a written agreement may not alone deter a predator or prevent the crime, but it will allow you an opportunity to meet them prior for the first time, not at the property, but maybe somewhere else, in your office, at a coffee shop, just to see if you have that uncomfortable feeling with this person, and you can decide whether to take a buddy on an appointment. But if you do it immediately and meet them blindly, not only is it hard to get that buyer agreement signed on the hood of a car, because you need to establish trust and rapport, but it's also puts you in a bad position, because then it's harder for you to escape and too late for you to bring a buddy with you. We do have an app at LIBOR that's a member benefit called Real Safe Agent, and you can find it on the LIBOR website. And that does have some features that if you do feel unsafe, that doesn't warrant a call to 911, you hit a button and neighboring agents who have the app open will come and help you. So we talk about background checks. Background checks are good, but just know that no national database is complete or has accurate criminal records. A lot of inconsistent clarifications and delayed reporting. And habitual rapists attack 11 victims prior to even being arrested, so they wouldn't show up on your background check. And 70% of the predators do not even have a felony conviction, so again, they won't show up. So should you do background checks? I say yes, though if nothing pops, don't let your guard down. Still be aware that a predator still may be that prospect. There's a lot of crimes that go unreported in the United States, and this stat's been the same. About 21% each year of sexual assaults and rapes are not reported because of the victim shaming. A good thing that we should look for the future, the National Association of Realtors, the Realtor Safety Advisory Committee, collaborated with the MLS, and soon we should see some MLS safety fields that could only be seen agent to agent and not to the public. So you'll know if a property is vacant, if there's no heat there, if there's poor lighting, if it's a remote location, if there's any electricity, if you have any inconsistent cell phone coverage. So this way you'll know in advance whether to take a buddy with you based on these findings. So let's talk about removing opportunity. It's something what I call an empowered greeting. I'll get to the appointment about 15 minutes earlier, and I'll stand on the stoop and I'll reach down and greet the purchaser. To a predator, I'm not showing that I'm weak or vulnerable because they're forced to look up at me. And then have a firm handshake. We know that a good firm handshake is a universal sign of strength and assuredness, and it removes the perception of being weak or vulnerable. But if you're a little skittish about making contact, a good head nod and a good eye contact with the person when you acknowledge them will serve the same purpose. I show a lot in Manhattan and in vertical buildings in Queens and co-ops and condos. So we created a little plan on how to show a doorman building. So arrive 15 minutes earlier, have a conversation with the doorman and tell the doorman, when I arrive with my purchaser, collect both our IDs and make sure we leave together and you give us our IDs back. What this does is it disrupts the fantasy and the plan that a predator may have that he was going to leave you in the apartment. And when you show in an apartment building, leave the door open just in case you need to call for help. So NAR says, bring a buddy with you all the time. We know always means never, but here are 4 times you should always take a buddy. These are absolutes. When the property is vacant, because you know a predator had selected that property so you cannot be seen or heard and be isolated. If there's poor cell phone coverage for the obvious reasons you can't access any apps or call for help. If you have that uncomfortable feeling prior to the appointment, many of the agents we interview had that uncomfortable feeling and discounted it and still pushed through the appointment, became a victim. But if you have that uncomfortable feeling prior, especially when you're getting your written buyer agreements done, bring a buddy with you when the appointment occurs. And then if you haven't had a deal in a while, you may want to take a buddy because you may be too eager to get to the closing table and miss the signs your body's telling you that something may be wrong. So 4 absolutes: bring a buddy when the property is vacant, poor cell phone coverage, uncomfortable feeling prior, and if you haven't closed a deal in a while. That buddy doesn't have to be licensed. It could be a family member, it could be a friend. Obviously, we know the rules. If there's a non-licensed person there, the conversations they cannot have. But to a predator, you're not going to appear weak or vulnerable when you have a buddy with you. And lock boxes. We want to make sure that our lock boxes are in plain sight on the front door. We want to avoid the rear or side doors because you're already making it easier for a predator to attack you. And if you're showing a property with a lockbox, never expose your back to the prospect. Try to get there early enough to remove the keys from the lockbox, and if not, just have them stand off the stoop or on the curb as you access the box so your back is not exposed. And then again, avoid utility meters. They hate when we have our stuff on their equipment. So NAR says, why don't you have a distress code or a signal that when you call your office, they're going to know that you're in trouble and they'll know who you are and your location. So we came up with, hi, this is Dave. I'm at 123 Main Street. Can you email me the disclosure file? So I just told my office who I am, where I am, and the code word disclosure file means to call 911 or to rally everybody out of the office with backs to go help you. So here are 3 ways how a predator is going to set the stage to attack. And we discussed this first one already, and this is the bathroom attack.
Yeah, I think there's a leak over here. Can we take a look?
And it happens that fast, a distraction and a strike. It also happens called the lookup attack, and you'll notice that she unconsciously moves to the voice as she looks up to the ceiling and walks right into the punch.
What's that?
I don't see.
And it's common for your body unconsciously to lean toward that voice. And then here's another attack. This is the hallway attack. It could also happen at the landing, but just notice the predator's hands as he approaches the doorway.
Here can be used as either a bedroom or an.
So when you see the predator has his hands up at the doorway or slows down his gait as he approaches the doorway, just know attack may be imminent. And if COVID taught us anything, keep 6 feet distance from when you're showing the purchaser. She's doing it right. She's not exposing her back. She's directing and not leading him, but her gait didn't slow down, assuming that he was going to be walking into that room. So how many people felt unsafe at an open house? And 15% said last year that they felt unsafe. So here are some proper ways or best practices on how my team and I host open houses. We'll notify the neighbors, whether by door knocking or by just listed cards advertising the open house. And we'll tell them that the open house is from 1 to 3, but the seller's allowing access, private access, special access to the neighbors between 12 and 1. We know that one property comes on the market, usually a second one comes on in that same block. But this will allow you an opportunity to have that lead gen conversation with a neighbor who may be curious to see how their home compares to the one that you're marketing. And it also lets the neighbors know to keep an eye and an ear out for you. Don't host it alone. Generally, it's my wife and myself with our buyer agent and a loan officer. So it's at least 2 or 3 people in the open house. Plan your escape routes. I prefer to have all my doors closed so no one could sneak in on me, but it's up to you if you want to keep one door open or not. And then control the traffic. What we do is we have one buyer in and one buyer out. If we have 3 people in, we'll do 2, but we'll control the traffic. And what that does is keeps you safe in the home, keeps the content safe in the home as well. But every time the neighbor looks outside, they see that you must be the most successful realtor because there's always people waiting. And it may create some buyer urgency too. This happened just before COVID, about 6 inches on the ground, about 27 people waiting to get into the open house. Though you'll notice no one of the agents are there. They're all in their car keeping warm. And then I ask for their ID. I have a sign on the front door as they come in that have your ID ready. And I ask for their ID not because if I know who they are, they're not going to attack me. I'm showing that I'm not weak or vulnerable because I'm asking him or her to do an act by giving me their ID. And then I would record that information or take a picture. And I have a letter from my seller stating that if the prospect does not show an ID or sign any disclosures, she's not authorizing me to show the home. And then again, direct, don't lead them, never expose your back. Avoid basements, bathrooms, garages, attacks in small rooms. And then if you're hosting an open house by yourself, have periodic check-ins. Have a neighbor, family member give you a call every half hour. If you don't respond, have them come and check on you. And then make sure at the end of the open house, everybody's left. Check your rooms and the yards before locking up. Be prepared to defend yourself. And I put that in there because I teach this every day. And 4 or 5 weeks ago, I'm conducting an open house and I have my buyer specialist there and the loan officer. The loan officer leaves at 3 o'clock. The buyer specialist picks up her signs at 5 to 3. And now I'm locking the house up by myself. And a gentleman pops out of the bathroom on the second floor and startles me. He could have easily been there to attack me, but I lost track of who was in the house. And I teach this. So you really got to be diligent and know who's in the house and keep track of everybody. And just know that the most dangerous time is at the end of the open house because a predator knows no one's going to follow after 3 o'clock. So when you're locking up and you're pulling your signs and you're putting them in your car and some late stragglers show up and say, hey, can you show me the open house? I'm sorry I'm late. Say no, because that could be a predator who knows no one's going to follow them because it's after the open house time. Just reschedule another appointment with them and decide if you need to take a buddy or not. So what happens if I told you there was a safety tool out there that could prevent you from being victimized? It would issue a warning that you're about to make a dangerous mistake. It's always on, does not require any batteries, and the tool is free. And you already possess that tool. You know what that is? That's right. That's your sixth sense, that voice inside your head, that gut feeling, the hair on the back of your neck, that you know something is going to be wrong. And we interviewed several agent victims, and they all had that feeling prior to their attack, and they wish they didn't discount that feeling. And just before we end, I just want to share some safety stuff. You go to nisar.com/safety. There's infographics. There's 3-minute videos you could show at your office meeting. There's plenty of stuff there. LIBOR also has a safety page here too that has the safety information, and it's LIBOR, lirealtor.com/safety. And then NAR also has some tools there, including the first video that I showed. If you'd like to download the slide deck and access my free safety ebook, some of the stuff I covered is in it. It's a quick read. It's a book that we wrote to keep the industry safe. We don't make any money on it. It's a total free ebook. When you scan that code or type in safesellingbook.com, it'll bring you to a Dropbox page where you could download the ebook. Well, I thank you, and I want to know what action steps you're going to incorporate into your business today. Please throw that into the chat, and if you have any questions, we'll take them now.